Well, good evening once again. It's Monday night, it's 8 o'clock, and we're back on air after last week's, I don't know what you call it, gremlins crept into the system and didn't allow me to go live to Keith. And thanks very much, Keith, for your patience and understanding.
Okay.
Much appreciated. But I am joined, as I mentioned, Keith Hackett, former Premier League referee, former FIFA referee, former head of the PGMOL. For you, those of you who don't know what the PGMOL is, it's the Professional Games Match Officials Limited, and those are the guys who look after and make appointments for the Premier League and the Championship. Delighted to have you again, Keith, and thanks very much for your patience.
Pleasure. Delighted to be on.
So much has happened, Keith. Shall we start with this almost beheading of this player by a goalkeeper in the game? My goodness, I've done many hundreds of games, as you have, I'm sure. I've never seen anything like this.
No.
He could have taken the guy's head off.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last time that an incident that was similar is going back to a World Cup game, I think involving a German goalkeeper, and the referee was Korver. I remember it vaguely. I can't remember the actual incident.
Yeah.
I think this is quite amazing, really, because we have the referee with an unobstructed view of the incident. He must have seen the height at which the goalkeeper delivered his brutal challenge, feet first, that catches his opponent behind the ear, the results of him being stretchered off with oxygen mask and receiving in hospital 25 stitches to a wound.
15. Oh my goodness, 25.
Just behind the ear. So, I mean, I was watching this game and I just couldn't believe that a challenge with that brutality was missed by the referee completely. And this referee is effectively being seen to be, and I've quoted on many occasions, our number one referee. I don't think he's that at the moment. For all sorts of reasons. He's not having a good period at the moment. That's for sure. When you consider that he did send an Arsenal player off, and that was, if you like, rescinded, that red card. I said at the time, I mean, his view was that was it, or the PGMOL came out and said, Premier League, that this was a serious foul play. On this occasion, fortunately, the VAR came in and rectified the error once Michael Oliver went to the screen. And I've looked at the incident on several occasions. This is a one of, well, probably the most senior of our officials in England.
Yeah.
And I've tried as a former referee coach, you look into things fairly forensically in order then to determine what is the advice that I can give to that referee. And the answer is none, other than to his boss. I think that when I look at Michael Oliver, he's not the referee that he used to be. I believe that is because he's getting too many games, remembering that he's officiating here, that usually around the highest number of games here in England. He acts as VAR and he acts as fourth official. And yes, I know they're professional, but the one thing in sport, any athlete will tell you, is how they take care in relation to recovery. And what we've got to understand is, after the Arsenal game, I was quite clear. I said he needs 2 weeks off. I think a lot of people thought that was punishment. But having been the boss of the PGMOL, you know that sometimes form can be easily lost. Things don't go well for you. And you start to take baggage onto the football field. And one of those is fatigue, because if you're fatigued, you lose concentration. And it may well be that there's a slight, even for our best referee, a slight loss of confidence. So for me, it shouldn't have warranted going to the monitor. I've said very clearly that challenge has no place in the game of football. And I've also said, for that punishment, red card, it's three games suspension. And I've said that 3 game suspension is insufficient punishment. It has to be a minimum of 5 plus. So that's my take on the decision. Could his referees have helped? But the guy who's got the best view is the VAR guy, and he ought to be able to say, Michael, just stick the red card up. He's going.
Yeah, Keith. You mentioned referees and losing form, and I want to state at this point, as I do regularly, Keith and I are not in the business of criticizing referees. Not at all. We've been there. We know what it's like. Yeah. At the same time, when things like this happen, you guys out there, the fans, the spectators, you want to know why and what happened. So that's what we're trying to do here. Not in any way to criticize any referee. We know how difficult the job is. Yeah. But getting back, Keith, you said that it could be a loss of form. How would you equate that? I mean, these guys are professional, the referees. They're full-time professional. It's their full-time job. So to give them time off, let's take any other player who plays maybe all 38 games in the league for the entire year. You'll get the forwards and the midfielders are substituted and so on. But you get any top defender, the likes of Virgil van Dijk, for example, or Alisson, the goalkeeper. They are there all the time. They have to keep their concentration. Is there something perhaps in the psychology of it that they're not being told or helped with to make sure that they keep their best performances for every single game? Players play 2 games a week. Referees are doing 2 games a week. Is there a comparison to be made or a difference?
I think one of the differences is this. If you're a professional footballer, right, you have available to you almost on a daily basis physiotherapists, water baths, chefs that give you the right level of nutrition, and the only difficulty you've got is driving from your house to wherever you're going to be picked up to go onto the team bus and then onto the aeroplane. So you're effectively, all your travel arrangements, you don't need a bag. You're literally walking or driving to the ground on the plane, off you go. Everybody looks after you. You're not even worried about your passport because as a professional player, that's held by the club and the club does all that work.
Is there something to be said then, perhaps, to have something similar for the referees?
Well, I think that what I'm trying to explain is that when you're refereeing a Premier League game, what you do is ideally you travel the evening before the game. You stay under your own steam. Either you go by train, by plane, or car. That's your choice. You arrive at an hotel in the vicinity of the ground. Now, this, if we look at Liverpool, for example, they will stay at Suites, which is on the Kirby Road, which is outside the city centre.
Yeah.
And then they'll meet with their colleagues, and the 12-seater people carrier will come and collect them, drive them to the ground. Now, if we look at Oliver, today, he's had, out of what effectively is a 380-game, 38-week program, 38 games, he's had 21, right, out of the 27 available. So he's been used. He's not had 6 games in the middle out of the 27 week by week.
Yeah.
In addition to that, he's also had 4th official roles, and he's also had VAR. So the player plays a football match, he goes back to the training ground, the academy, and usually then he's got physios and everything working with him, gets to sleep. So if you take that Arsenal game as an example, you've got Michael Oliver incorrectly sends a player off. I'm saying he needs 2 weeks. On the Tuesday, that happened on the Sunday. On the Tuesday, he's on an aeroplane to Barcelona, a top European game of which he officiates. He officiates that on Wednesday evening, and then on Thursday, he's got to find himself back to Newcastle. That's usually a fly into Heathrow to Newcastle. Friday, he's got to get his kit, and he's now got to drive to Ipswich, where on Saturday he has a game. Sunday, no time to recover. Wednesday, he's got to referee the Merseyside derby. So you see how the difference here is the fact that his rest periods are unlike that of a football player.
Yeah.
He's got to make his own way. He's got to do his own administration. And of course, he's also got to attend training camps run by the PGMOL at St. George's. So he has to travel there as well. So look, I'm not underscoring the fact that this is one of the reasons I put forward the need for professional referees. But within a professional environment, right, if you haven't got the PGMOL, the demands of their referees are great, then what you need is more referees at that quality.
That was my next question. Is the need for a bigger panel then? Is there a need for a bigger panel?
Well, I think that what you have to do is, if you look at Thomas Bramall, he's a Premier League referee. He's had 6 games this season in the middle. And, you've got Michael Salisbury, who's getting fairly established, 8 games. So this is about the effective management of Michael Oliver, where what I used to do was sit with my sports science, my sports psychologist, and we would look at each individual referee and look at their needs, their individual needs, and so the one thing that I think most sports people fail to do is rest and recovery correctly. And of course, what you've also got to understand is you referee an evening game and you're probably taking a meal at 11:30 after the game, 12 o'clock. These all impact on the diet, nutrition, and the body clock. And look, I am trying to find excuses for the referee, because what is so important, having managed referees in the PGMOL, body fats, fitness levels, recovery rates were always measured. And so for me, Oliver is in a bad stream. That, again, psychologically can be damaging to the confidence. It can give hesitation. And so for me, I would be saying, here's your tickets, off to the sunshine somewhere. We book you the hotel. Just go and have a rest. Get away from it all. You don't suddenly, because he's a fervent football fan, he supports Newcastle. So, on those days when he might be recovering, he's probably at St. James's Park watching Newcastle. So,
well, that in itself can be relaxation, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But I think, again, it's a bit self-discipline, and it's a bit better management of the individual.
Yeah. Okay. We don't, like I said earlier, we don't like to criticize referees, and certainly not our intention, but we do like to highlight incidents that take place and explain, or try and explain, why they have taken place. Now, there was probably a record so far with VAR. Which game was it now? It was Bournemouth and Wolves. Yeah, there was also a red card in that. 8 minutes, Keith. I thought the record before that was, I think I saw 5 minutes and 32 seconds. This was 8 minutes. How in heaven's name can they justify that?
I think it's very clear to me and others that our referees in the Premier League have become slaves of technology,
Yeah.
rather than actually using technology to enhance their performances. For those that are not aware, I've been calling for the semi-automated offside system to be introduced. And of course, this weekend, on the majority of games, this is what they introduced, the semi-automated offside system. Now, I expressed some concerns, not about the company that's producing the hybrid system, Genius Sports, but the fact that the system used by UEFA and FIFA is a system that has been tested and tried over a long period before it was introduced by those two organizations. And generally, it's worked extremely well. No technology gives you 100% because of the interaction between the technology and the people concerned. So this weekend, we saw Genius Sports introduce the semi-automated system, which has its own bank of cameras. It has the dots, not that you see them on each player, and uses AI to get the signals back. I expressed some concern about the shortfall of that system because I'm not aware of the technology with regard to the ball. Because, of course, in the UEFA system, they're using Adidas ball, which has a chip in it, which is patented, as I understand it. And immediately that ball is touched or played forward, it sends a snapshot to the system that says, flash, this is where the players are. And so you get that instant judgment on offside. On average, in Europe, that is 30 seconds less than the norm that it used to be. So it's a substantial difference.
Sure.
So when we come to this particular incident, the first thing is they're actually looking for an handball. And he probably spent out of that 8 minutes, a minute or two, you know, we've got this lead up led by the PGMOL that says, how can we rule this goal out, rather than actually saying, let us say that goal's allowed. I think we're trying too hard to rule goals out when in fact what happened was it looks as though the Genius system failed for whatever reason. And so they adopted and went back to the old system of drawing lines and all that went with it. It is, in a modern game, totally and utterly unacceptable. And therefore, I think that when you actually have technology, part of using technology is the fallback system. We know if you're a pilot in an aircraft, I always use the analogy, you know that if there's a problem, you've got a bit of a lever and you fly through the head of the plane and you're suddenly floating down in the air, probably with a headache and a parachute to drop you, and the plane goes off and it's failed. Yeah. And so I've been through this process with goal line technology. What if it fails? What's the scenario? So I think that it's time for us to start saying, look, I know that the old process is it's not under a time penalty, but if we're going to maintain credibility about decision making, let's go 2 minutes. And if nothing happens, you haven't come to an answer in 2 minutes, default position is what the referee's awarded. Goal kick.
Because we didn't have this kind of thing, Keith. Before VAR came in, before any of this came in, the referee made a decision, and that was it. You know, some people will say, well, it's becoming too technologically advanced now, all about decision making. They're talking also now about like cricket and tennis, where a manager can now, question two or three. I may not be getting the wording right. If we went back to the old system, like the guys have to do on a Sunday morning in the park, there's no VAR. Sometimes they don't even have assistants. They have to make a decision. And whether the players like it or not, you refer to Law 5, paraphrasing, that says the referee's decision is final.
I think the difficulty here, Errol, is this. That if you're refereeing in the park, and we've all done that, the only people that's going to question our decision are the players and the odd manager around the ground. I mean, okay, if you're semi-professional, you might get, if you're at Hallam FC, where they play the oldest ground in the world, they had 1,000 spectators this weekend for a big game. So you're in that ballpark. But what you haven't got is you might have a VO camera that you use post-match that might show the errors. But we're talking about the Premier League, and we're talking about the forensic examination of every decision through a minimum 22 cameras. And therefore, it's a different game. We have to understand a professional game. It's a game, but it's a different game. And the aim always has to be, you want the very best referees, you want them performing at the optimum level, and the fewer mistakes, the better. But what we have become, technology and the way it's been operated at this moment in time, has too many fault lines. The fault line of a guy refereeing one day and being VAR the next. The lazy refereeing that we're seeing, which is almost like a hot potato. I'm going to pass it to Stockley Park. I don't need it to have, who can I blame? Stockley Park's made that key decision. When you go back to that Oliver decision, there's almost a comfort zone to say, well, if I get a big decision, VAR is going to pull me out the mire. And therefore, those decisions where you want accuracy and you want the speedy decision is going to a default line that suddenly says, oh, VAR will pull me out the mire. So I think we need technology. It's how we use it. And 5 years down the line, I think we're at a worse stage than when we introduced it.
Well, as always, we want you sending in your comments and asking your questions. And we want to hear from Gerard O'Brien. And Gerard says, hi, Errol and Keith, enjoying the show. Despite Michael Oliver's recent blips, for me and my opinion, he is in the top 10. He's in the top 10 best in the world.
Yeah, look, I think Lewis Hamilton is the best Formula One driver. Some might say it's Max Verstappen. But the reality is that with both of them, they need the mechanics and they need the psychologists and they need the cars. And I think that when we're looking at people like Michael Oliver, when you are the very best, then what you have to do, deliver the very best on every game. And when you are recorded as being in that top 10, your error rate is so much smaller than what we're getting, or fewer than what we're getting at the moment. I mean, look, I think most of us has watched Pierluigi Collina. And what was amazing about this guy was that you could do a forensic examination of some of his performances in Europe, and he wouldn't make one error. And you go, wow, that is some record. What we're getting with Michael Oliver is, one, he should see that foul challenge by that goalkeeper and the red card should come out in a flash. Where Michael Oliver was lucky in this game, in many other games in similar situations, you would get players coming together in a mass confrontation. I think because Michael Oliver has the respect of players, right? I think that didn't happen because of him. Yeah. But nonetheless, you would expect that guy to see that decision. But let us also understand, he's come for criticism for that, but he did send a player off at Arsenal, and he judged that a serious foul play, and it was not. He was reckless. And therefore, again, when we're examining referees here on this show, we're actually, in a way, doing a forensic examination, but we're also recognizing that those young referees that are watching us who want to aspire to get to the top, the way you get to the top is the fewer, we term them KMIs, key incidents, you do. And Oliver is making too many at the moment.
Mm-hmm. The Anthony Gordon red card, Newcastle against West Bromwich, Anthony Taylor.
I thought this, first of all, I've been critical of Anthony Taylor. I thought Anthony Taylor had a terrific match. His last two games, he's been really good. And he's been good because all of a sudden, he's not hiding behind yellow cards. He's doing a little bit of effective management, but he's been proactive, not reactive. And it's a subtle change to get in early, to win the players over. He's not weakening, but he's actually managing more effectively. Where a player puts his hands in the face of his opponent, and the telling bit that I'm looking for here, and it might help you in refereeing, is when a bent arm straightens, there's an element of force in that, and that's exactly what happened. So he's run alongside, he's got his hand in the face of his opponent, and his arm is straightened out, and there's an element of force in what he has done. And for Newcastle to think that they're going to get off, if he gets off, that's a real injustice to the game and the laws of the game. Taylor was absolutely spot on this. That was a red card offence.
Did you see I think I sent you the video clip of the referee in the continent. Where was it? Was it in Belgium? Where the manager came right up to the referee's face as he was giving him a red card. Come on. I mean, this is appalling behaviour. This guy deserves at least 6 months away from the touchline. And maybe even the club will fire him.
Yeah. I mean, I did see that. I think there are levels of dissent in the game. There's a lack of acceptance that the man in the middle is human, or the woman is human, and that errors will be made. And I say no different to that centre forward. I saw a couple of chances missed this weekend by players with almost open goals. Yeah. And let's make the point. Manchester United got knocked out of the FA Cup because their so-called forwards or players failed to put the ball in the back of the net. And that's a mistake, isn't it? So referees do make mistakes. They don't do them on a purpose. I worry about the fact that modern referees, in fact, Pierluigi Collina's made comments about it in recent hours about the lack of respect for referees, particularly at grassroots level, because the game is difficult. At the senior level, we've got a degree of protection, but that doesn't mean to say that misconduct should not go unpunished. And I watched the Wolves game where Kuna, their player, and an outstanding player, make no mistake, lost it. He lost it absolutely big time.
Completely.
And then he even finished up arguing with the members of staff of Wolverhampton Wanderers. I mean, that's a massive disrespectful thing to do in a game of football. But these things happen. And
a good penalty taker as well, they were saying. So he could have cost Wolves going into the next round because there was every possibility that he would have scored, and he certainly would have given them a chance. But instead, he decided to behave like a petulant brat in simple terms, getting involved, and then getting involved with the club officials as well. Appalling behaviour.
But one of the things that I want to mention is there was a young referee on the EFL, and I'm sorry I haven't got the game, but a player was dismissed, I think about 8 seconds from kickoff. So kickoff, and this guy deliberately, in a violent manner, used his elbow on an opponent. 8 seconds.
Wow, that must be one of the quickest red cards ever.
It is. The referee's gone in, red carded. And I smile because when I go back to the introduction of the warm-up process and procedure, prior to kickoff. It's part of that psychological preparation. And I remind all referees, when you blow the whistle, please don't start messing around with your watch to make certain it's work or whatever. And this referee didn't. And this referee was on the job, saw what took place, and the red card came out absolutely a flash. And I thought, terrific.
Well, I've often been asked, did I ever regret giving a red card? And I said no, but I've often regretted not giving a red card to some players.
Yeah.
Keith, once again, we've run out of time. Many thanks for joining me again. And many thanks to you out there for watching. And I hope you've learned something from the conversation tonight. We'll do it all again next Monday. Until then, good night and God bless you all. Thank you. Thanks, Keith.
Good night.